Best bites forever.
Hey, what's up everyone? I'm Chef Alicia, and in this video I'm making chicken lettuce wraps. Let's rock it out. I'm starting off here with 1.5 teaspoons of cornstarch, and I am mixing that with 1 tablespoon of water. I just want to mix this together until I get all of the little lumps out. This is what's going to act as a thickener in our sauce. Next, I'm mixing 2 teaspoons of sherry in there, and if you don't happen to have sherry, you can use another red wine or Madeira. I'm also mixing in 2 teaspoons of soy sauce, and don't worry because I will be giving you a full list of the ingredients down below in the description. Also 1/2 teaspoon of peanut butter. That's just going to give it a nice little background kind of flavor. And here I have 1 teaspoon of hoisin sauce. So you can actually make your own hoisin sauce if you want to, or you can buy it in a bottle, which is what I did this time. Moving right along, here I have 1.5 pounds of chicken, and this is partially frozen, which is just going to make it a lot easier for me to cut these really thin slices. So I want them to be at least this thin, and maybe even just a teeny weeny little bit thinner. So let's do that one more time. This is perfect. That's what I was going for. The next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to mix my chicken up with that little marinade that we made. I'm going to cover this and refrigerate it for 45 minutes. The next thing that I want to put together is the sauce that we're going to use while we're cooking. So that's going to start off with 2 teaspoons of soy sauce along with a tablespoon of sherry, 2 tablespoons of hoisin sauce, and I know this seems like a lot of ingredients, but keep in mind a lot of it's just being poured out of a bottle, so it's really not a whole lot of work to do that. Next, I added in a tablespoon of oyster sauce. I'm also adding in a tablespoon of water. That's just going to give us a little bit longer of a cooking time. 2 teaspoons of sesame oil, 1.5 teaspoons of sugar, and 2 teaspoons of cornstarch are also going in. Again, I will give you a full list of ingredients in the description. You don't have to worry about writing as I'm talking. I'm going to give this a nice little stir until it all comes together and I don't have any lumps. This is looking absolutely gorgeous, so I'm going to go ahead and put this over to the side for now, and we're going to start doing some chopping. So the first thing that I have here is a tablespoon of fresh ginger. I also have a pretty huge garlic clove, if I do say so myself. To cut that up, I'm going to be using the back side of my knife, not the sharp side, which I know seems a little bit weird, but if you put it on the very edge of your cutting board, like so, and then you just kind of go over it with the back side of your knife, it kind of starts the mince for you and it makes it a lot easier. Then you just turn your little garlic clove the other direction and run your knife over it again, and as you can see, this is pretty much minced as it is, but for this particular dish I do want it to be even more minced, so I'm just going to run my knife through it a couple of more times and I'm going to set it over to the side. Just a quick little explanation about the ginger and why I wasn't cutting it. It just is because I chopped that a ton ahead of time and then I freeze it, so I actually had a little bit frozen. The next thing that I'm going to be chopping up here is my green onions. I'm going to do the top half, which is the dark green half, separately from the bottom half, and that's because they have different cooking times. It's going to take the bottom half just a little bit longer to cook. It's a little bit less delicate than the top part. So I want to chop these pretty thin and then set them over to the side. Again, I do want to keep the bottom and the top part separate. So now I'm just chopping the little white part of my onions, and again I do want to keep my slices here pretty thin, so I'm going to finish chopping these, keep them separate, and put them over to the side. Here I have some bamboo. You can buy this at pretty much any Asian market. A lot of Walmarts also carry it, and if you can't find it at either of those places, then I would try looking on Amazon. I will leave a link down below if I can find one for you. These are pretty slippery, so they're kind of hard to put into a nice neat little stack and chop. So I'm just kind of doing the best I can to stack them and chop them. But as I'm going here, what I'm going to do is just put them into a little pile like so, and again just run my knife through them so that I have a nice little mince. It's pretty important for this dish to keep everything really small since you're going to be putting it inside of the lettuce. You don't want anything to be like overpowering. And then I'm just using the can as my container as you could see there, for my bamboo. I'm going to do the same thing with these water chestnuts, which is what these are. And the water chestnuts are kind of the same situation as far as where you can purchase them. You can find them in Asian markets. I actually got these at, I think, Sprouts or Walmart. And if you can't find them there, I again will try to leave a link down below. These guys aren't quite so slippery, so you can stack 4 or 5 at a time. And this just kind of cut them like you're chopping little French fries. And once you get your whole pile done, just go over them with your knife a couple more times, again, just to keep everything really tiny for this dish. I am moving on now to my mushrooms, and here I have some shiitake mushrooms. I happen to have some left over from the other day from something else I made, but you can buy these dried like this at the Asian market, and definitely on Amazon if you can't find them at an Asian market. And again, my Walmart carries them. I don't know if yours does, but I'll leave a link. So I'm just going to finish chopping these and put them to the side. Here on my stove, I have some oil heating up, and it's between 350 and 375 Fahrenheit, and these are bean threads. You can also use cellophane noodles, but these are kind of fun to cook because they do that when you drop them in the hot oil. So once they finish cooking, just go ahead and use a slotted spoon or whatever is easiest for you and take them out and put them on a paper towel to the side. So as you can see, this is really, really loud, and this is why I always turn my volume off, but I do want you to hear the sound of what your chicken should sound like as it's hitting the pan. So enough of that. Let's get rid of the sound for a second because I'm yelling. Sorry, I just wanted you to hear kind of that sound when I was putting the chicken in. I'm going to go ahead and cook that chicken just for a few minutes. I want to make sure that it's cooked all the way through. And if you take a look here at the bottom of the pan, you can see that there's a lot of caramelization, and that's coming from that marinade that we put in there. But don't worry, the caramelization is fine as long as it's not turning black. If you see it kind of getting to a deep brown, just stop for a second and add a little bit of water into the pan. Those sugars that are caramelizing on the bottom of the pan are totally water soluble, so it's really not a big deal. Just scrape them off with water. Remove your chicken, and again, I'm going to do the same thing while my pan is nice and hot. I want to get all of those gorgeous little brown bits that are left behind because they have a ton of flavor in them. So I'm going to pour this juice right over top of the chicken that I took out and just keep it to the side. So here our pan is pretty fresh. I put a little bit of Pam in, and I've also added in my garlic and my ginger, and now I'm adding in the bottom part of those green onions because like I told you earlier, those take just a little longer to cook. I'm also going to be adding in kosher salt and layering it in as I go like I like to do. So I put a little kosher salt, and then my mushrooms just went in, and again a little bit of kosher salt. It's really important to layer your salt as you add ingredients and you add a little bit of salt. It's probably going to have a total of, I don't know, 1.5 to, let's say 1.5 teaspoons, and then beyond that to taste. I stirred that all around, and then I added in my bamboo and water chestnuts. No salt this time because canned products usually have plenty of their own salt, so don't worry about it with that. Next, I added in the top part of my green onions, and now here is my beautiful chicken, which I went ahead and chopped up into smaller little bits because, again, that's the texture we're looking for this particular dish. So here is the sauce that we made earlier and we had set to the side. That's the next thing that is going to go down on top of this chicken. And from this point, really, we're just making sure that the chicken is really well coated, and you might have to add like a tablespoon of water to this if it's not really coating it well. Then you just need to heat it all the way through, and you can serve this however you want, but I like to serve this family style. I think it's a really nice way to go for it. So what I do is I take a large kind of bowl plate type of thing, you'll see it in a second, but I just pile the chicken along with my bib lettuce. You can also use romaine and those noodles that we fried, and it is gorgeous. So there it is, you guys, just like Mama Never Made, and I will see you in the next video.
bestbitesforever.com